Well, good morning, team. We are excited to be here with you, and we're rounding the bend right now, right, Angela? It's fall market, Q4. We're teeing up for, the end of the year, but I actually feel like this is a really great opportunity for a lot of people. And hopefully we can kind of re-energize a lot of our accelerators to see where, in my mind, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, because I think so many people right now are taking their foot off the gas. And I think for those who really start looking at what can I do to kind of keep myself moving forward, there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, agreed. And I think today, guys, I don't know if you saw me posted in the room, but my idea today was to really have kind of like an open coaching session. I know that there's been a lot of talk about, some struggles in the industry lately and some agents that are kind of feeling deflated. And, we kind of all took our foot off the gas for the summer. And so I think there's just a lot of that junk that we've been sitting with for a few months. And I thought maybe we could have kind of an open dialogue today and see if there's anything that you guys are personally struggling with in your business. Anything that you would like tips or tricks or advice on, or some guidance on. We'd be happy to help you guys if you want to throw some things in the chat. And I'll keep my eye on it, Amy, as we're talking. But Amy and we would like to focus on, the topic for the month is developing some next level client relationships. And I think it's really topical. Amy and I were kind of chatting for a few minutes before we started the webinar about some things we wanted to talk about today, but it's really topical. And I think it goes along well with some of the struggles we're having in real estate right now. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about relationships and maybe some creative ways to look at nurturing some relationships and providing value. And then I'll keep my eye on the chat and see if anyone has anything. Amy, does that work?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And when we were talking earlier, Angela and I, the thing that's interesting is some of the concepts that we're talking about today. I was not really laughing, but I was remembering that, some of this content is stuff that we pulled from the time, if all of you are with us, when Kevin and I did It's All About Love. Anybody out there remember that? When we were all on Zoom, and Kevin and I would bring the motivation for, I think it was like 12 weeks. Holly, thank you so much. And we were really getting good with our green screen. Remember, I feel like we looked like weather forecasters. We were standing, you guys remember that? We were standing with like the green screen, and then Kevin would put like a picture of Chicago in the background. We'd have our mugs, but the funny thing is we still had to stay far enough apart because we're still having to social distance from each other. Anyway, and we put a lot of that content together, which was really incredible. And, so a lot of when we put together Accelerate, it was the same thing. But when we were talking this morning, it's like, look, 3 years ago, holy cow, 3 years ago, we were talking about nurturing relationships, and here we are kind of back to it. And, I think the reality is that, like, that's what we have to always remember, is that fundamentally, this is a relationship driven business. Everything else that we do, if we're great at transactions, if we're great at negotiating deals, all of that stems from the fact that we've built phenomenal relationships with people where we've garnered trust, and they recognize us being the conduit and the expert when it comes to things related to home for them. And, but I know one of the struggles that we're seeing right now and hearing from a lot of agents is like, I feel like I'm tapping my relationships out, right? I feel like I'm smiling and dialing. I'm hitting my A's and my B's on a regular, and my C's even on a regular basis, but no one's doing anything, right? We kind of feel like no one's moving or nothing's happening, right? And so, part of, I think, what we have to recognize is that, sometimes it's the long game with the relationships. And even though you've called or talked to them 4 or 5 times this year already, you just never know when all of a sudden they're out at a dinner party and suddenly there is somebody that they know that is thinking about buying and selling. And because you've stayed top of mind, because you've continued to be that value over the last a couple of years, you're their go-to. You're the person they recommend when somebody says, do you know somebody who'd be great for us to work with? So I know that's hard, because I think one of the biggest struggles for us as agents is we want the timing to be our timing. But a lot of times it's really what's going on in the universe, and it's the timing of others. And that's why it's, part of it is extending your reach and making sure, yes, you're reaching out to your A's and B's. But today we want to talk a little bit about, like, how do we nurture maybe some of those weaker links, some of those people that maybe it's not as easy for you to reconnect with, because those are the relationships right now that if you have the time, you can actually start, sort of really developing.
Yeah. And I think we also have like really short-term memories too. I think Amy, when you said like, we don't always like when it's on other people's time and it's not our time, we had our time in the latter of 2020 and 2021 and 2022. It was our time, right? Like business literally came to us, fell in our laps, was so easy to be had. And we all have short-term memories, and it's like hard to even remember how the market used to be before COVID.
Yeah.
But Amy, don't you agree? Like it was a little bit like this before COVID. Now we weren't dealing with interest rates at the level that it's at right now. So of course that's throwing a little wrench in it. But we focused a lot more on relationships back then, and it wasn't always on our timeline back then too. And things moved a little bit slower than they were moving during COVID. So I just feel like we are getting back to a more normalized market, as much as we don't want to admit it and didn't want this to come back. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in it too. And Amy, do you want to talk about kind of like the idea of these weak ties and some strategies on how
Yeah.
people can concentrate on those?
Yeah. So, when I saw this slide, I really liked it because it made me think of 60 days of summer. I know maybe some of you participated, some did not. That's okay. But it was really kind of focusing on, over the summer, keeping your foot on the gas and just doing a power hour every week. Right. And so we actually had Kevin Rocio, and I think most of you may know who he likes to refer to himself as K-Rock. He is a commercial agent, but he really focuses on multi-unit. That's, predominantly kind of his focus of business. And he decided to really lean into the 60 days of summer. And what I loved is he focused a lot on his weak ties. Because again, it's really easy to kind of call an A, right? Because the A is probably somebody you also went and had a beer with 2 weeks ago, right? Because they're so in your flow. A lot of our A's are our friends or good close acquaintances. Our B's maybe still pretty good, but we know who those weak ties are, right? They're those, maybe those clients from 5 years ago that like they kind of just fell off of your radar, and then you haven't reached out, and now they're sort of that awkward sort of, how do I re-engage them? So I loved how Kevin approached this, and I think it's a great idea for all of you as you're trying to figure out, like, how do I get out in front of some of my people, or how do I do some prospecting or outreach? And so what he did is he decided to go back starting in 2015, and he basically just picked a year. So he picked 2015 in the first week of his prospecting challenge. He picked 2015, and he went through his list of everybody who transacted with him in 2015. He put together just a really basic kind of outreach sort of script, so it was easy for him to send it to everybody. And he did a really quick market update for them. And, he said some of these people he hadn't talked to in like 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. And, but he just kind of focused on, hey, I'm reaching out to all my clients who I transacted with in 2015. And I helped you purchase a multi-unit. I wanted to reach out, and he basically just did that. But what was so amazing is that he did 2015 in the first week. He got 2 clients from it simply by reaching out. They were like, oh my God, it's so great to hear from you. You know what? We love the house that we're in, but we actually are thinking about maybe investing in something else, and it's one of those things where, because he reached out, he kind of made that activity happen. So first week, got 2 deals. Second week, he decided to focus on 2016. got another person who was like, you know what, we actually are thinking about selling what we've got and we'd love to buy something bigger. And so he was just like, I'm going to just keep doing this. So the next week he did 2017. He was supposed to report back, but my whole point is that, you know, he wasn't super comfortable because there were a lot of people he hadn't re-engaged with, but he almost did it from a place of like, you know, doing like a business audit. He kind of went through and he focused, and I love it because sometimes we want to do this, but we're super overwhelmed. So it was like, he just took it year by year. So
Yeah.
week 1, he took 2015, week 2, he took 2016. And I just loved that approach because I think we say, oh, we're so afraid to reach out to people that we've lost contact with. But the reality is they feel bad too. And I think if you just throw it out there, you can create an energy that didn't exist before. It's like throwing something out into the universe and the universe has to respond. So I love that as that.
I like even because Callie just asked if there's a script that he used, or maybe something we can share. Maybe we can get some talking points that he used. But I like going in, hey, I'm reaching out to all my past clients that I transacted with in 2015. There's your reason, right? You don't have to have any bigger reason than that. And and like Amy said, you're not even going to come across that opportunity unless you put yourself out there. He would have never gotten that business. You know, they would have just continued not talking to each other and they would have used someone else. You know, so keeping in touch like that, I love. Amy, do you know like what his talking points were when he reached out to people? Was it to do like a market review or
so he basically did like an analysis. I'm trying to see where I can probably pull up my email from him, but he basically just did a market analysis. He kind of just focused on, hey, here's what I'm doing right now for all my clients in 2015. You know, he kind of created an explanation of, you know, there's been a lot going on in the market since you've purchased. And he basically did a CMA for them, you know, just a real estate review. He does those a lot. Kind of very ninja-esque. And he basically just showed them comps. And then he had a talking point. And what I loved about the fact that he did it year by year is when you go and let's say you decide to focus on your clients from 2018, you know, you can remember what 2018 was like, and you can have talking points just for 2018. Do you know what I mean? Because you can say it's crazy because actually month supply of inventory in 2018 was averaging X. Now we're in a market where month supply is really here. And that's what's driving the home values. And that's what's giving you you know, some really great equity. So it's nice because you can kind of research each year and come back with what I would say are like 3 to 4 really smart talking points about what has happened in the market since they purchased. And that's all he did. He kept it very business tactical, focusing on, you know, my clients are really wanting to know what's happening in the market right now. So this is what I'm giving you, so that if you are thinking that you'd like to do something, you've got the information that you need. I'll try to circle back once I find his email and see if there were any, you know, specific points. I can even ask him, you know, but it's a really basic script. I really wouldn't overthink it. You know, it's just straight to the point. And it's, look, here's what I'm doing for my clients. And they are really appreciative because, you know, the market has changed so much since they purchased.
Yeah, I love that. And some other like really easy scripts that we've been recommending that agents use are centered around, you know, if you are calling friends and family or people in your CRM, you could say something like, you know, I do a complimentary real estate review for all my friends and family. They love it. I'd love to do one for you because the market is super interesting right now and really has been changing over the past few years. And a lot of my friends and family are really surprised by how much equity they're sitting on. So I'd love to let you know what your property is worth and dangle that carrot, you know, learning what their equity is, right? Oh, wow, my house might be worth more than I thought it was. So that's another simple script that you guys can use too. And Holly says InfoSparks can give us all the data too. And yes, I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing that we have to recognize is that when we're reaching out to our sphere, we aren't asking them if they're ready to move. I think sometimes that's a roadblock for a lot of us as agents. It's like we reach out to our A's, our B's, our C's, and we're like, oh, they're not doing anything, so I'm done.
Mhm.
And the thing that we have to remember is like they may not move for another 7 years. It doesn't mean that they can't be an amazing referral source for you. But the thing is that we have to remember that we have to kind of train them to understand that that's what we're looking for, right? And so part of that is, you know, did you have Paul Blackburn at all, where he talked a little bit about his referral program?
He didn't talk, we talked about negotiation and things like that, but no, not the referral.
Well, it's something that we're going to probably integrate into business planning to a certain degree this fall, but we're going to give you a little bit of a teaser of two things that you can think about, and we can maybe even send out. Paul has his scripts, which are awesome. He also did coffee with me last year where he talked about generating referrals. And there's really sort of two buckets of how you generate referrals. The first is the direct ask, which is a lot harder for agents. And then the second is the indirect ask. But I want to talk about the direct ask right now, because the direct ask isn't necessarily putting on a tagline. Hey, if you know anybody who's thinking about buying or selling right now, I'd love to help them, right? The direct ask also isn't calling people, warming them up with forward conversations for 10 or 15 minutes, and then saying, hey, is there anybody you know who's thinking about buying or selling? What I would encourage you to do as you start thinking about this fall and that you want to fill your pipeline, I want you to think about, are there 5 people that you could call or text? You don't have to call them, you can text them. And you can simply say to them, hey, Bob, I hope you're doing well. Hey, listen, I'm reaching out because, right? You go straight for it. I'm reaching out because I'm in the process of taking a look at, my fall business planning, and I have some availability to take on some additional clients. Do you know anybody right now who's thinking about, buying, selling, or investing? I'd love the opportunity to talk with them if there's anyone you know. Now, the difference of me doing that versus texting Bob and asking how his summer was, or calling Bob and saying, hey, how's the family? And then later on, I say, oh, hey, by the way, do you know anybody who's thinking about buying or selling? The thing with that is that what they feel when you do that type of an ask is they feel like they don't really give a crap about my kids, my family, everything I did. They were just waiting to ask me that question. So I want you to like flip it on its head and just say, hey, listen, the reason I'm calling is, and go straight for it and just say, I'm building my pipeline for this fall into 2024. And I just wanted to reach out to see, is there anybody you know who's thinking about making a move or could use some help as it relates to real estate? Boom, that's it. And then if they say yes or no, not a problem. And then you go in and you ask them about what's going on, summertime, all of those good things. I think we're so afraid to do that. And Paul actually, when he was an agent and he was teaching his group to do it, he made all of them do it on a text. They all had to reach out to 5 people. Do you know how many people got positive responses? I think everyone except one got a client that said, actually, you know what? I feel like I forgot that, so-and-so, when I met with them, was thinking about it. I'll send your name along. So I think we get caught up in our own heads about how to do it. And it's like, just tell them what you want. Just
Amy,
tell them that I'm looking to grow my business.
how about we tell them what happened at our Michigan and Indiana sales rally when we did the same thing, when we asked everybody to, yeah.
Yep.
So we were kind of presenting the same concept of trying to go in for the direct ask for referrals, right? If you feel like your CRM is tapped out, ask for referrals. And so we challenged them, to all the agents in the room, to get their cell phones out and text somebody and just, use a very easy script that, I'm in a sales meeting and my manager is challenging me to, build my book of business or find some more referrals, or just wondering, do you know anyone that could use my help? And there were like all these hands going up that had like successful conversations, and people like got some leads, like literally real time as we were presenting the information. So this stuff really works, guys. It takes a little bit more confidence, I think. But I think if you go in it authentically, right? Like Amy said, flip it on its head. Don't go in asking about family and then asking for business. Go in asking for business getting
Like
it
be
out of the way,
professional, like
and then
be
asking for
professional,
family.
you know,
Yeah,
like, hey, this is what you do for a living. And they also need to learn like, oh my gosh, Angela wants referrals from me.
yeah,
Ding, I didn't realize that, right?
yeah.
So so the funny thing about that story is that there were like 3 or 4 people who did get business right then and there. The funniest is the face that the girl made. I forget what the agent's name was, but I saw her when we were suggesting that they do it. And she had this total, and we've all gotten it, that total look of like panic and like, oh my God, this is the last thing in the world I want to do right now. But we said, just take one of these scripts. So she did it begrudgingly. I saw her do it. She like kind of took the script, probably sent something, and was probably like, nothing's going to happen. All of a sudden, the whole table erupts
They're
because
like,
we ended up getting a freaking lead out of it. The one person that I remember seeing. Anyway, so it's just like sometimes we have to look at things a little bit differently too. You know,
yeah.
we really have to, and it's about taking ourselves seriously, right? Taking ourselves and what we do seriously as a really big value add to our clients. So
Amy, we have some stuff in the Q&A. Karen said, how do you prospect friends but not seem salesy? How do you handle when close friends' kids buy with another agent and not you? A close friend's daughter used another agent because someone they work with used them and said they were good. Lost opportunity of over $1 million in sales. People know and like me, but use other agents.
mhm. So what I would be wondering is what is that relationship really like? You know, because are they seeing you as the agent of choice? And I know that might be kind of a hard thing for me to sort of put out there, but I know even, and it happened to me in my business. And I feel like sometimes the things that I did were too soft. Like, you know, I would call and see how they were doing, or I would do things that were geared way more towards building a nice relationship and friendship, but I didn't do enough to really show them, holy crap, there is no way I wouldn't use anybody but Amy because she
Right.
is so in front of the market. So what I want you to think about is when you're engaging with them, you know, are you having conversation, but then are you inserting stories about how you're moving the needle for clients? And I think sometimes when we interact with friends, we're afraid to do that, but we have to be helping them understand what we do, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think about, you know, storytelling, and our market and our industry is super interesting. So I think you can say, oh my gosh, you know, this market has been really interesting, but it was amazing. I actually created a great win for one of my clients. Here's how I did it. And you talk about those sorts of things, because I think they need to, especially people who are close to you, they're almost more afraid to engage with you. Because I talked to somebody this weekend who ended up a relationship was ruined over a bad real estate transaction. And so there are people who get really nervous about, you know, engaging with somebody that's super close. So, you know, I don't know, sometimes when it's friends, you also have to get head on and, you know, this is your level of comfort, but if it were me and this was a close friend, I would love the opportunity. I would sit down and I would just say, hey, listen, you know, I'd love the opportunity to understand or talk to you about real estate and just kind of go head on and ask why they aren't referring me. Now, you can do it in a way that doesn't make them feel uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
it's, you know, sometimes they have to also know, like I had client friends where I would have to say, look, there's friend Amy, and then there's Amy who's going to help you with real estate. And they are two different people. But I almost had to say that to friends of mine.
Yep.
So that they knew that they could be hard on me, that they could push back and tell me that if I wasn't pulling my weight. And some people are afraid to even go there, and they're not going to go there. So you're the one that's going to have to go there. You're just going to have to, I think, have that conversation. But without knowing all of it, my question is, do they really see your real estate success enough? Do they really understand that you are the agent of choice? Because maybe they aren't seeing that right now because you're not pushing. And when I say pushing real estate, it's you're not giving them opportunity to see some of the successes that you're having in a way that is maybe making them feel comfortable. And feel free to call me if you want to talk about it more. I know it's hard to, you know, get to the bottom of it on a Q&A.
And I think to your point too, Amy, there's a lot of times that people just don't know that they should be giving you business. People don't know how to refer you the business. People don't know if you're super interested in taking the business, right? So make sure, and without being salesy, like I get that too. You don't want to be down people's throats, but I think you should be confident in the fact that this is what you do for a living, right? Like, and you provide a lot of value to people that you know. So it's okay to ask for business without seeming super salesy or like you're pushing things,
And I
in
think
people's
this is
faces.
where like the indirect asks are so important. So there's the direct ask, right? But one of the things you all should be doing, and this would also combat or at least allow your sphere to start seeing you in action, is that whenever you have a client success story, maybe you're recognized, you post it on social media, but part of it is also thanking the referral source to say, Bob, thank you, and tag that referral source and say, Bob, thank you so much for passing along, Bob, Steve and Susie, getting them their house. We were able to win out in multiple offers and they're really excited. Part of it is sort of teaching others that it is great and the outcome is positive when they refer business your way. Does that make sense? Because what I see on social media is a lot of times agents are saying, I'm so happy for my new clients, Steve and Susie, but oftentimes Steve and Susie got to you through somebody in your sphere of influence. You should be calling them out and saying, thank you so much for entrusting me to help your friends, Steve and Susie, the most of my business is by referral. So this means the world to me. It's like, you kind of have to make sure that people are also understanding, they want referrals. Honestly, those people may not have even thought that you needed or wanted the referral of their daughter.
Yeah.
So, what I would do is I would say, like, what could I have done better? Because it isn't their job to just know that they should have referred you. And don't do it in a space of feeling bad. Just say, you know what? I got to figure out, because something isn't working right here. Somehow they're not getting that message or that idea that they should at least give me the opportunity. And that's the other thing, is you don't have to say, you don't have to give me the business. I just want the opportunity to be at the table. I'd love to show you what I can do. And at the end of the day, you've got to pick the best agent for you, period. And if it's me, I'd love it. But it's about your choice. But I just want to be able to be at the table.
And have a nice follow-up program for people that do refer you, right? Like, take care of them, show that you're grateful. We have a great 8x8 plan that focuses on actions you can take for people that refer you business, just to stay in front of them and make sure that they know that you're appreciative and that you're following up with them on the transaction that they referred you. So I think we're going to build a lot of this into our fall business planning, which I'm super excited about. We have some great other comments, Amy, now that we're coming up on 9:30, but Karen,
I know, like Monique Sandberg said she had 2 clients that called
Yeah.
over the weekend that have been working remote in warm weather during the winter, and now they're deciding to make a move. So, so that's what we have to recognize, is life is still happening. And
Yeah.
people at some point are going to say, regardless of rates, regardless of what inventory looks like, their life is changing. And so they need to make a move. So it's like, we've got to remember that the basic practice of just being top of mind, being what I heard a statement recently that said, be the economist of choice. Understand the dynamics of the market. And here's one other thing I'm going to tell you. If you are not listening to those monthly reviews or podcasts, or what are they, webinar,
like economic updates.
economic webinars with Marcy Rossell, you need to do it. You receive them every month. Kevin, I think, posts them and sends them out, but then most managing brokers are forwarding it on to their agents. It's about 30 minutes, but she tells you what's happening in the world and why things are impacting our real estate markets the way that they are. It's so important for you when you're going to a cocktail party to be able to understand what's happening in China may potentially impact what happens to our economy over the next 2 quarters. And it might then impact what's happening with rates and what's going to happen with housing. Like, as an agent, you need to understand real estate, but you also have to understand what's going on kind of politically, what's going on economically, not just in the United States, but war in the world, and how like the war in Ukraine could impact, us moving forward. So I love it because if you don't follow all that stuff so regularly, every month she gives you kind of the top rundown of the last 30 days of what we're seeing as it relates to the economy and how it's going to impact real estate. It makes you so much smarter. It sure as hell made me a whole lot smarter.
Yeah,
you know,
totally. Do we have anything else in the chat?
Marianne said something about a multiple offer situation right now. And co-op commission is
Co-op
2.25
commission.
would be hard to ask, but buyers at top of their price range. But is there a way to try and get the additional quarter percentage? The thing that is tough is that if you are already negotiating, you have to be careful about your compensation getting in the way of your client. Like, for example, years ago, I had it where I had a client and the co-op was below standard. Before I even showed it, I went and I talked to the agent and I said, look, I've been showing these guys a ton. I want to be paid 2.5%. And, the list agent said, well, I had to negotiate with my client and take a hit. And I said, I'm sorry, it's not my problem. But, so the idea, what you have to be careful of is you're kind of already down the path, and you can't necessarily now try to impact your buyer by trying to insert that you want something more. Now, if you had a conversation with your buyer before you even went out and started looking at houses that they were going to cover the difference, that's one thing. But if you're kind of on your heels trying to negotiate that, I'd be really careful, because you could ultimately be sabotaging the deal in lieu of like your compensation. And
yeah, I do that out of the gates is a better approach than after like you've gone
you
down
really
the path.
can't do it in the midst at this point,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Got it. All right, guys. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you. Of course, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. I'm happy to share some of those scripts that Amy mentioned. I'll make sure I post that as a follow-up in our app. I wanted to review some homework that we have for the month. It's pretty light, but it really is all about reaching out to people and kind of keeping those relationships going. So homework due by 9/13. I have a nice relationship worksheet handout that Amy had put together for one of her previous campaigns during COVID, but it's really great. And just fill it out and kind of get a sense of like where the opportunities are, of who you can reach back out to, maybe someone you haven't talked to in a long time, etc. Homework due by 9/27. We have a new Cap Farm gift coming out. Amy, isn't it an umbrella?
Yeah, it's an umbrella. And the cool thing is I think it pops up and inside are clouds. And then it has our big love written inside of the umbrella.
It's really cute. So that's coming out soon, guys. So we would love for you, if you don't order our Cap Farm gifts, create a Cap Farm in your CRM. It could even just be 2, 3, 4, 5 people. It doesn't need to be crazy, but it's a great way to really go deeper with those relationships and send them the next upcoming cap gift and see if that gives you any conversations. And remember to follow up after you've sent it with a text or a phone call. Connect with people on the super connectors list and the reconnections list from your worksheet. And of course, remember to be doing those daily prospecting efforts at least every weekday, and updating your CRM. So your next meeting is going to be your accountability group meeting on Wednesday, September 13th. And I will post all the follow-ups in the Accelerate 2023 room on the app after the webinar. That's all we got, guys.
All right, we'll make it a great Wednesday, and we hope that you got a few takeaways here to just go out and go after it. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, right?
Yep. We'll see you soon, guys.